good, I guess it's still good morning. We started a little bit late. We're gonna try to do what we can to make up a little bit of time. I know we're between you guys and lunch. But to start, many companies use aircraft to move people and equipment to destinations around the globe to conduct their business. In each case, decisions must be made regarding the use of commercial or private aircraft, safety and security, departure and arrival points, scheduling and costs. This panel is going to explore what influences that decision-making process and how and where corporations move their people and their planes. In the true spirit of technology, our first panelist is actually joining us by WebEx. Jolee Goularte is the director of the global procurement operations for Flextronics worldwide travel and events. She has 20 years experience in the travel industry as a buyer, focusing on cost reduction through strategic relationships, negotiations, incentives, and globalization. Jolee concentrates on benchmarking analysis, policy, and procedural restructuring while maintaining global relationships with vendors. She is a certified global travel professional through the Global Business Travel Association, who owned her own travel consulting firm for over 15 years, specializing in travel procurement and incentive programs with clients such as Michelin Tire, Cisco Systems, Bovis Microelectronics, and Adaptec. Joining us live, Rich Walsh is currently the Vice President of Global Aviation for the Hewlett Packard Company, where he is responsible for the operational and strategic oversight of executive flight operations and travel-related security initiatives. Prior to joining HP, Walsh worked as Vice President of Aviation, Enterprise Risk Management, and Business Continuity for Cardinal Health. Before that, he worked for 20 years at United Airlines, serving in a multiple training, risk management, and flight operations leadership roles. Mr. Walsh has accumulated 30 years of business, security, and aviation industry expertise. He is a subject matter expert on best practices related to human factors training, technology innovation, and operational controls to create world-class travel security, enterprise risk management, and aviation safety management programs. He currently serves on the board of directors for the National Business Aviation Association and is type rated on 9 turbojet aircraft. Also joining us live, Ms. Stacy Howard is the National Business Aviation Association Western Regional Representative, supporting NBAA members in California, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and Hawaii. Stacy brings to NBAA 20 years experience in aviation advocacy at the regional, state, and local levels, having worked closely with pilots organizations, industry groups, legislators, administrators, and FAA to promote good aviation policy and preserve general aviation access to airports and airspace. She works with NBAA leaders and staff to assure business aviation continues to operate safely and contribute to the success and productivity of its member companies. Stacy holds commercial multi-engine pilot certificate and a BS in professional aeronautics from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And we would like to start off our panel with a short video.
Do you feel that we now, in the 21st century, we take technology for granted?
Well, yeah, because now we live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots that don't care, because this is what people are like now. They got their phone, and they're like, it won't. Give it a second. It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is the speed of light too slow for you? Yeah. I was on an airplane, and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane, and they go, open up your laptop. You can go on the internet. And it's fast, and I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane. And then it breaks down. And they apologize. The internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, this is bull. Like, how quickly the world owes him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago.
Right. Right.
And on planes, flying is the worst one, because people come back from flights and they tell you their story. And it's like a horror story. They act like their flight was like a cattle car in the 40s in Germany. That's how bad they make it sound.
Right.
They're like, it was the worst day of my life. For First of all, we didn't board for 20 minutes. And then we get on the plane, and they made us sit there on the runway for 40 minutes. We had to sit there. Oh, really? What happened next? Did you fly through the air incredibly like a bird? Did you partake in the miracle of human flight, you non-contributing zero, that you got to fly? You're flying! It's amazing. Everybody on every plane should just constantly be going, oh my God! Wow!
Yes.
You're flying. You're sitting in a chair in the sky.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Hi, my name is Jolee, and I'm the Director of Worldwide Global Travel and Events for Flextronics. And I apologize for not being with you today. Unfortunately, I missed the best part of the trip, and that is going home. That's always my favorite. I am a native Bay Area gal. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, so welcome to my home. Flextronics has over 220,000 employees, and that does not include the contractors. We are in many countries. Our headquarters is based in the Bay Area. We do have charter flights. We own planes, and our air spend is close to $100 million, and our travel spend is over $200 million. I wanted to go over a few things with you in regards to how technology works from a travel management perspective and how we choose where we put our people. But I hope you enjoyed the video with PK Lewis, because it kind of shows you a little bit of insight of the millennials and how today's mindset is. And I have to admit, I am one of those people that get very frustrated on a flight that doesn't have internet, because that's my comfort. It's my quiet zone where I don't have the phone calls. I don't have people coming up to me. I don't have people asking me for questions. I could just focus on getting some work done without interruptions, except for what can I get you to drink, right? So, so I am guilty. But from a travel management perspective, first let's look at the scope of what the forecast is for 2015. And this is a scope based on one TMC provider. It is our TMC, our current TMC provider. So North America, we are truly taking a gain in the volume, especially in the Bay Area. As you know, the Bay Area is growing tremendously, especially Silicon Valley. It's really putting us on the map, all the growth that's in there. People are actually referred to Silicon Valley, which is nice to hear, considering I'm on the East Coast. 5 years ago, it wasn't like that. So I like that a lot. Latin America, it's some growth. EMEA's kind of strength is leveling off. And Asia, it's leveling off. For some companies, for us, that's not true. We're actually building more in Asia. We have quite a few projects that we're actually building up in Asia. From a domestic airline perspective, I did tap into some of my counterparts in other companies, not just in the Bay Area, but in other states as well. And they were kind enough to give me some of their data. And these are the domestic airlines that they show, as well as us, as their primary providers. Now, as you can see, and I know some of you do not want to hear this, there's not a lot of low-cost carriers on here. Now, if you just took Flex, you would see that with Flextronics, we do have some low-cost carriers. Because we're manufacturing, we are in areas where no man wants to vacation. So, unfortunately, we do have to take a lot of low-cost carriers that do not have GDS access. And I say unfortunate because from a travel management perspective, it's more difficult for me to control the spend, duty of care, as well as some visible reporting. So I like to have my airlines in the GDS. So I know that there are some of my counterparts and other companies of our size or larger require it. They will not allow ticketing on low-cost carriers. We try to find workarounds for that. So for international airlines, this, of course, is based on the same footprint of the counterparts the companies that I was working with. Now, if you see here, you see the big three, of course, the big three alliances. You've got the Star Alliance, you've got American, and Delta's down there. Of course, if you saw the Flexes, then Delta would be a lot higher up the totem pole. And then you have Emirates down here at 3%. And any of you who hear about open skies or tapped into open skies, you know where I'm going with that, where the Middle Eastern carriers really are only 3% of the total spend in the U.S. compared to the big three. So this is true to Flextronics spend as well. We do a lot with the alliances, and that's primarily because we need to have visibility, and I have contracts with these particular airlines. So again, going back to low-cost carriers, if I can't get a contract and I don't have visibility, I really don't want to do business with that particular low-cost carrier. Now, for Flextronics, we would have another low-cost carrier that's actually based out of San Jose on this particular model. They are one of our top 10 because we're the largest employer in Guadalajara, so we do a lot with one of the carriers out of San Jose. Now, these are domestic, because I know that you're domestic airports, so I wanted to focus on that. You'll have to excuse some of the visibility here. But these are, out of those particular companies, the top city pairs. Now, if it was just Flextronics, I would probably throw in there Charlotte and New York as well, and Chicago, because we just built a plant in Buffalo Grove. We just built an office in Manhattan, and we have a new office in Charlotte as well. So that would be for Flextronics, but based on the other companies' data, this is what the main cities are for those particular companies. Now, how do we book this travel? Well, you have the airline.com model, which is like your Southwest.com or your Volaris.com. At least with Southwest, you can book your Sabre. So you have some visibility to that. Or you have the TMC, which is preferable because then you have all your iJet, your ISOS, which shows you where your people are in case there is an emergency and you need to get to them. So that's your duty of care factor. You also have the reporting, so that way you could go to your airline and say, no, but I spent XYZ with you. You need to actually give me better discounts. And you have well, there's only two. Oh, you have consolidators, and we don't allow consolidators in our company, but I know that there are companies out there that do allow consolidators. So the preference, we did ask the travelers in these particular companies, we surveyed them, why do they book in other channels versus the TMC? And so these were the answers that they gave us. And the reason why I'm really hitting hard on this is because we do have the millennials that are coming out, and we do have technology that's coming out and that is actually here. So we, meaning the travel managers, have to really start thinking about a different way to start moving our people and technology. Because the GDS is very archaic. It's here, but we can't get everyone to book on the GDS. And there are some of my airlines that do offer web fares that cannot be booked through the GDS, and so I don't have a choice. And so how do I capture that? So we have to think of different ways to actually book our travel and to monitor our travel. So these are the reasons why they pick online or the Southwest.coms or the airline.com model. And that's because they feel like they're saving me money because it's cheaper on the internet. And in some cases, I will admit, it is. Cathay Pacific has web fares on there. I cannot book through the GDS, and so I'll allow it. And so I have to capture that spend in other ways. But with 220,000 employees, difficult for me to hurt the cats or make sure that I've got that one itinerary in the ISOS system or GK into the Sabre system. There is more content, so wider choices of routes for the trip. That's true. Some companies will only put the content or the airlines that they have contracts in their booking tools because they want to make sure that they fulfill their agreement with their airlines. Now, we don't do that, but some companies will do that. They mandate those contracts. the visibility and the content in the booking tool is not there. So they will go out to the internet or they'll go direct to that airline. There are some airlines, not necessarily in North America, maybe a couple, but primarily in Latin America, where you can only book on the internet and you have absolutely no visibility for the GDS, in the GDS. So they're right. In a lot of times there are more choices. And sometimes the content isn't exactly set into the booking tools. And it depends on what booking tool you have if there's going to be visibility. So there's a lot of ifs there. So that one, that's true to form, the wider choices for their trip. That's true. That's true. A better booking experience, I guess that's personal. If it's easier, it depends on your booking tool, or if you don't want to pick up the call and call an agent versus going on to that airline website. And lower booking fees, that's debatable. I usually find, unless it's a web fare only, and really there's only 2 airlines that I know that are true to form to that. Every other one, you're not really comparing apples to apples. Leaving at 2 a.m. in the morning is much different than leaving at 2 p.m. So you really can't compare the two, and it's just traveler education. Ability to earn loyalty points. Now, that is truthful. That's why they do it. It's because they want to earn their loyalty points. So can they earn loyalty points with a airline that is not necessarily, that has such a .com airline and not necessarily in a GDS? That's questionable. It depends. I know that there are some out there. So let's think about the TMC booking channels, because that is the #1 method for travel managers. That is our preference. That's really what we want to do. Some companies out there do have the open booking platform like Google, although they have their own tool that they have created to do that. Intel, they went open booking with the January 2014, and I know that they're having some challenges as it pertains to risk management and data and security. So we have not done that, although we're looking at how we can put our arms around it and adopt the open booking platform. I'm not quite sure what happened. Did my screen just go blank over there? Hello? Yeah? Do you see my screen?
Yeah, your screen is up.
Oh, well, it just went.
I'm sorry, no, it did go away.
That was weird. So, in the sake of time, do you mind if I just keep yapping?
It's a good idea. Just keep going.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm just gonna improv. So there you go. I'm not gonna share my screen anymore. So this is obviously not working. There we go. Okay, that's better. All right. So the TMC booking channels, obviously, when you book your TMC, you have more compliance. And why is that? Because the TMC has it programmed as to what our travel management, our travel policy is. Is someone trying to talk? No? Okay. So when we use the TMC, obviously our travel policy is followed. If someone books on a .com at Southwest.com versus Southwest.com, and I use Southwest just because they are one of my preferred suppliers, and I mean, everybody knows who Southwest.com is, right? So everyone knows who Southwest is. But with Southwest.com, do I know that the traveler, when they put through the expense, that they didn't book a business preferred, and that's really their business class, and we don't allow that regardless, not Flextronics anyway. I can't tell that because I don't see all the expense reports, nor do I want to, and it's against policy. An agent online or a booking tool, a .com, airline.com booking tool, can allow you to book whatever you want. My TMC is going to, or is supposed to, stop that from happening. So that way it drives compliance to follow my policy and follow my vendors of choice. And most of all, do the least logical fare. That's our policy. It's not necessarily the airline, it's the least logical fare. When the studies have shown that it is 9% cheaper to book through a TMC. And quite honestly, I would argue that it's probably less expensive. It's more, you have greater savings than that because I don't have to manage the expense, nor do I have to pay a team to manage the expense. Every time you touch it, it's going to cost more money. And so that's less profit to the bottom line. And you already saw that. Are there any questions as of yet? Now I'm going to tell you something that that we are creating, and over the weekend, actually, this past weekend, there's a team of travel managers in Silicon Valley that are actually creating a tool, and it's kind of like a marketplace similar to Amazon, where because Amazon you could get anything. Absolutely everything. And with some of us could get it the same day. So if I order something in the morning, it's delivered to my doorstep in the afternoon just because of my logistics and the Amazon warehouse logistics, which is nice. So some of us are thinking and creating and collaborating on doing a travel marketplace. And in this travel marketplace, it would actually have your low-cost carriers, it would have your GDS, it would have your hotels that are off the GDS, on the GDS, it could have your charter planes, it would have absolutely everything, a one-stop shop that's created by the travel managers. And we're also doing a study as to what is this going to look like in tomorrow or 2 years from now. Especially with the recent pass-through fees that Lufthansa is imposing on corporations. Now, for a corporation of my size, it's not going to hurt a lot, but I'm going to feel it because of the GDS pass-through fees that they're going to be charging. They are forcing us to go to their airline.com system and book reservations. And I'm just telling my people to stop booking Lufthansa, book on another carrier, because we need to, as a community, we need to retaliate against that. And I do believe that we need to book with the GDS. But on the back end, we're creating a marketplace where we will have more visibility to all of this spend. For Flextronics, again, we are in places where no man wants to vacation. We have a lot of low-cost carriers globally that we use. And these are your charter planes. These are your, similar to what you belong, they're not in the Ryanairs out there, the EasyJets, the Dragonairs. These are all airlines that are difficult or cannot be booked through the GDS. And by the way, it's very difficult for us to pay for that airline ticket because with some of these carriers, you have to have a credit card in hand in order for them to charge on to book that ticket. And we use Lodge cards. Our company does not have a credit card program, so it's very difficult for us to manage that as well. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, excellent. Sorry. Okay, good. It broke up there. So the point being is that the wave of the future is not going to be the GDS. Right now it is the GDS, and that is the travel manager's perspective, and that is the travel manager's choice, or it is our booking choice. But we do know that we have to think out of the box and change the way that we manage travel, because not all of your airlines in your airport subscribe to the GDS. And not all of the new travelers, which are the millennials that are very tech savvy, book to the traditional manners or methods. Unfortunately, technology hasn't caught up to that yet. And so we will be moving travelers in a different way in the future. Right now, the technology is not there. Are there any questions as of right now?
No questions right now. What we need to do for the sake of time is just to continue on with the program.
Thank you.
All right.
So I can't be like the airlines and use weather as an excuse for everything, right? Well, if we can throw my slides up there, please. All right, see if I can figure out this technology. So today I'm going to talk to you about HP and kind of our matrix approach to automation, travel security, and really aligning the right travel solution to our business requirements. You know, in our world, it's especially in the business aviation world, it's all about access, agility, and aspirational. And really, technology is all about tying that all together. So I hope I can touch on that. And I've got, I think I have a very unique insight into airports, airspace, globalization, and I think will be some stimulating concerns that I have as it relates to our ability to really sustain a infrastructure to support the travel requirements in the future. I had the opportunity to go to ICAO a couple weeks ago, actually about a month ago, and I have to say that it's staggering where we're going to be with the travelers. They're forecasting we're at somewhere around 7 billion travelers a year right now on a global basis. Another 8 to 9 years from now, we're going to be at like 14 billion travelers. And I would tell you from my position, while I think there will be that demand, I will tell you that based upon my global experience, there's no way on earth we're going to be able to mature the infrastructure quick enough to support that. And we'll get into some of that. So I don't care how good the technology is, if we don't have the infrastructure, we're not going to be able to support the travel demands in the future. So anyways, next slide. So again, like Flextronics, we're a global company. We have over 330,000 employees that we have to support around the world. And the motto at HP is always on. So any given day we have 7,000 to 14,000 travelers utilizing the airlines, charter companies. We use our own HP aircraft, trains, you name it. We use every form of transportation. So I think, for us, again, anytime there's any type of event in the world, an HP traveler is impacted. And that's one of my jobs, is to ensure from a business continuity standpoint, and duty of care, do we have the right technology in place, one, to know where our travelers are, get them to where they need to go to, and like I said, ultimately protect our brand and ensure we have a good customer-facing solution. So this is an area, and while the focus of this particular area is around technology, I would tell you that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the traveler itself, because to me, the weakest link we're facing right now is the traveler's interface with technology and how they're utilizing that. What I am finding in our world at HP is, even with all the technology we provide them, we partner from a travel basis with Carson Regling. The information we give them, security warnings, anytime they book a trip, they're given a security warning that they're going to a medium risk, high risk, and we even mitigate that by not allowing them to book a ticket. But what's amazing to me is, even with all the information that we provide them, we still have employees who somehow end up into high-risk countries or into really bad situations. I actually had the opportunity too at HP. I have a security role, so I deal with kidnap and extortion. And it's amazing how many people end up in bad situations because they have absolutely no situational awareness. Even with the wonderful smartphone, they'll go to Brazil in the middle of the night to a teller and take money out, and we get involved in an express kidnapping where they're just picked up in a car and and they're moved around the city for 24 to 48 hours, and they're trying to extort money. And these are experienced, HP managers who you think, with all the technology, they have a good sense of what they're getting themselves into. So my point here is that we've got a lot of technology for the global traveler, but our issue is just like supply chain management. You're only as good as your weakest link. Our weakest link is our traveler. We're dealing with complacency, always on. A company like HP, the traveler is always on. They're doing meetings around the clock, so stress and fatigue impacts them. And then we deal with limited options, and here's for the airports folks and the airline folks in the room, I mean, clearly what we're facing at HP is what a business continuity issue. We're seeing so much consolidation in the airline industry, and whether it's domestic or more impact on a global basis, is we don't have enough flights to move different groups around the world and meet our business continuity requirement, which is, in general, at a company like HP, we never want to put more than 50% of a particular management team on a particular flight to move them to a meeting. I will tell you that we've got, in particular, in certain regions of the world, we don't even have enough options. We're having to deviate from our business continuity policy at HP in terms of how we look at flights, because we just don't have the offerings. So I'm very concerned from a consolidation standpoint. Can we even move the HP travelers? I mean, I think in China alone, they built 47 airports in the last 5 years. But of that, there's only a handful that are truly 100% up and operational. And it comes back to the whole infrastructure issue. So at HP, from a technology standpoint, we have this great technology to move our folks, but the problem is we just don't have the infrastructure. And again, we look at it from a security standpoint. How many people can we put on one airplane? And so we look at that too on the company jets too. And again, we do a matrixed solution. So we get a normal flight request in for a particular executive or a management team. It's my job and my team's job. It's a matrix solution. We do a risk assessment, just like for those who are finance and enterprise risk management. We'll actually look at that flight and score it on a particular level. So we look at about 50 different parameters. And based upon the score that it gets, we'll actually dictate what type of solution, whether it will be on a first class ticket potentially or business class. Will it be on a charter / NetJet solution? Will it be potentially even a train? But it's my group's, that's their role, is to align the solution based upon the risk. And we look at that at a very granular level. And as I said, we actually score that request and determine what's the right solution. The problem sometimes we have is that solution may or may not be available based upon the time we have. So I think to give you some insight for those running big airports, our issue in the technology world today, in the past we used to use these company jets, charter, NetJets. It was a very strategic use of the airplane. I will tell you, in the technology world, we don't even build a schedule out with our charter solutions or our company aircraft. We don't build a schedule beyond 2 weeks. It's really I'd call it a resilience tool. The airplanes are resilience tools because what we're dealing with everything from revenue retention to patent issues to immediate, we're going to lose a deal. We have to be able to respond in domestically in a couple hours. Internationally, we're getting requests to go to China, India. We can't even pull them off quick enough. I mean, they want to go in 24 hours. We can't even get access to those markets. So really the limiting factor to us is an access issue. But what I see in the business world is just, that the commercial solution, first class travel, even for executive travel, is becoming a more viable solution because that flight is already in place. You have access, you have the overflight permits, they exist. That's what we struggle with at the corporate level, is getting that turned on quickly. In a company like HP, that is something we're dealing with on a regular basis. So something in the past where we had 3 to 6 months to plan out an international trip, that's coming now in days. And that's really when I talk about access, agility, and aspirational. And when I say aspirational, meaning we've got to be able to use transportation to inspire our executives and our frontline employees to go out and get additional business. If they don't have the access and the mode of transportation they need, it's an issue. So I think the thing I wanted to touch on here is, again, utilizing technology to protect our people. And I think that the challenge we have at HP is what I call the duty of care issue. So we use everything from, we use Anvil. So Anvil system, we monitor every movement of every HP employee. We know we can, within 15 seconds, where every HP employee is traveling, as long as they book through our travel system, right? If they haven't done that and they're going outside of that, we can't protect them. That's probably one of our biggest issues, is getting compliance with our employees utilizing our travel tool, because if they do, we have a very sophisticated technology in place to monitor them, and we monitor every event that goes on. So if there is an earthquake in Peru, we know within minutes that that's occurred, and we can say we've got 30 travelers who are en route there, and we can advise them or get in touch with them. So our issue at HP is that people don't, we get about an 85% compliance rate with using the technology to book their travel and hotels. And for a security professional too, why is that a big deal? God forbid they're ever in a kidnapping situation. If I don't know where an executive or a manager is, I can't help them get out of there, put the resources in place. So that's what we really work on at HP, is getting them to focus on compliance, utilize the technologies in place. Not just utilize it to utilize it, let them understand the benefit of that. So this is really, what I talked about earlier, aligning the resources to risk. We're a matrix company. We're so large. This is all about driving the technology to drive accountability to the lowest level in the company, and that is the individual traveler. And so, I think the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is what I would say in the always-on environment. Our employees now mix personal with business. And so they'll mix business travel in with personal travel. They may go to some really bad places on the personal side. At what level does the corporation responsible, for their duty of care? If they, for example, go to Paris, but they decide to go to Cameroon after that to go on a safari, and that's happened at places like HP, where we've got kidnap situation where the employees deviated from their business travel. And that's just the trend we're seeing in our company, is just this real mix at all levels, from the executive level to the frontline employee. And so as security and aviation professionals, at what level and duty of care, I think that's what we're challenged with today. We have the technology to help us, but again, there's a lot of external factors that are impacting us in our ability to protect our employees. So I think the challenge we have is, again, we're the limited resources, and I want to spend just a couple minutes, and I know Stacy will probably get into this, but the challenge we have on the executive travel side now is, of course, security, but it's all about access. And I would tell you, in general, our biggest challenge with airports is that as a company like HP, even domestically, is to have the infrastructure in place at airports to support movement of our aircraft. And what the trend is these executives want to go into smaller airports, and they want to go farther. They want to go into Beverly, Massachusetts, which is a relatively small. They want to avoid Boston, but from there they want to go on to Tel Aviv. And I will tell you, the airplanes range on the executive jets are becoming longer and longer, but the issue is we don't have the infrastructure, even in the United States, to support those movements. Everything from supporting the electrical ground power requirements of these airplanes at some of the fixed-base operators, to the length of runways and the noise. As you're all aware, noise is a huge noise curfews that impact us in our ability to move these executives in a 24/7. So I would tell you that that's the challenge we continue to face. And honestly, it's gotten to the point where our executives are saying, why do we even have these particular aircraft if I can't move even domestically into a certain airport when I want to? It's a real issue. Internationally, while you're most domestically focused, We're still coming out of domestic airports. We can't get slots into China. We can't keep an airplane in Beijing for more than 24 hours. Come on. I mean, you feel like the redheaded, stepsister, in business aviation. So it's a huge challenge for us to get the access and move our airplanes around as we need to. And California, no offense to anybody in California, it's a huge issue in terms of certain airports that we have, restrictions on, and that impedes our ability to do business. So I think what we find in our world is that a lot of the folks are not as educated on business aviation at the airports, and we're not given access because they don't really understand the model. And hey, I get the revenue piece, but at the same time, a company like HP, when we're moving a certain executive around, that person's impacting that economy more than that particular commercial flight. We just want an equal, we want parity, we want a seat at the table. So again, it comes back to what I call, from a technology standpoint, a systems approach. You've got to have good policy. We have an excellent travel policy in place at HP, and it runs everything from the frontline employee all the way to the CEO. How they travel, where they'll travel, who they can travel with. And it's got to start the tone from the top, and that is the CEO's got to comply with the policy, and the frontline employee's got to comply with the policy. You've got to have predictive and proactive risk management tools. The technology is awesome in this field, from what we use on Anvil, Mir 3. It's incredible. We've got to be using the automation and analytics that we get from our travel company to see what travel patterns are, where we should be going to, where we shouldn't be going to, and where, in terms of emerging markets, can we even support the ability to, provide service to our employees in these areas. And then again, it's all about repeatable experiences, giving the employees, the standard operating procedures that they can operate on a day-to-day basis and maintain that situational awareness that they can remain viable and safe, in their travels. And then we need feedback to continually improve. So when you talk about technology in our world at HP, I would say it's really all about a systems approach, and technology ties all those pieces together. So I think this is and I know I'm probably limited on time, and I'll go shortly. But when I think about the challenges as it relates to airport and aircraft utilization criteria, these are the things that come to mind, top of mind. I mean, clearly globalization and consolidation of the airlines, we're very concerned about that at HP. I'm very concerned about secondary markets, even in the U.S. And there's multiple reasons. That's a whole nother seminar, but I mean, just even in the, just even having the talent pipeline to support what's happening in the airline industry and the regional airlines, we've got some serious issues coming up. And I do believe that we all better remain focused that even in secondary markets, we're going to have access, because at some point the airlines are going to stop serving they just won't have the resources. Clearly the human element of the things that I talked about as it relates to just, even though we have the technology, our travelers are becoming less savvy, and their situational awareness is breaking down, and that, I think we're going to continue to see issues on that. Proximity of and infrastructure at some of the smaller airports is going to be a huge issue in the U.S., and it already is. We are already seeing infrastructure issues. And again, as I talked about, compliance issues with travel policy, we're all getting pressure from a travel budget. We're going to be, we have less dollars, but we're expected to do more. And then again, just the global footprint. Even though we're U.S. based here, we've got to think globally, because everything we do has an impact in terms of, we've got employees who are, they're global employees, and they've got to move around, and the impact culturally it's having as it relates to different standards that different cultures have around travel, that they'll accept certain travel practices that maybe in the U.S. we would never accept. So again, from a travel standpoint, when we have the automation and well understood utilization criteria, it's all about end-to-end safety and security, a compliant workforce. We've got to have customer-facing opportunities, and at the end of the day, it's about creating more usable time. And I was joking earlier, and I'll close on this, and I would just say, for the airports people and the airline people, I mean, if we managed our supply chain at HP the same way they manage the supply chain in the airline industry, we'd be out of business. You can't keep using weather as an excuse. Even though you have weather, guess what? Weather occurs everywhere. What we're seeing and what we're experiencing with our employees is there's no infrastructure or continuity plans in place, for example, at the airlines, so that when our employees are impacted at an airport, sometimes it's taking 24 hours to 48 hours to recover. That's not acceptable to a company like HP because the industry is moving so fast. So I always love to challenge the airlines, but the weather, well, there's no reserve crews, there's not enough gates, and they can't recover. They don't have spare planes. And we lose, you know, on a delay like that, we lose 2 days of productivity on a top executive HP. That's a big deal. So, again, thanks for your time. Sorry for going over, James. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today.
Thank you. I think you have some slides also for my presentation. So to start off, I would have to say that at NBAA we've seen tremendous changes going on in the way our members operate and in the resources that are available to them. And I really cannot think of any industry that is more directly or dramatically impacted by technology than aviation, especially business aviation, not only from the perspective of utilization of the aircraft, utilization of the system, but the fact that the corporations who are using business aviation are some of the highest producing, most relevant companies in the world today. So they are definitely interested in technology in order to help their businesses grow, and we want to help them get there. So from the cockpit into the cabin to the hangar floor to the peak of the corporate ladder, technology is changing the way our business operators are utilizing the system. And I want to talk mainly about the first, about 4 subject areas, and I'll try to touch on them pretty quickly. The airspace, the airports, international operations, and the onboard technology of the aircraft. So airspace modernization especially is really important, and NextGen is really here, and you are part of the enablers for that. And we want to, we serve on the General Aviation, or excuse me, the NextGen Advisory Committee, along with the DoD and the airlines and the airports and air traffic control. And one of the things that's underway right now is the FAA Metroplex studies that are going on, and I would encourage each of you to visit the FAA website. Here's the web address for the latest update from FAA on the Metroplex system and what they're doing, what the studies entail. The modernization or the introduction of Metroplex plans and procedures have already taken place in Northern California, in Houston, Atlanta, and Charlotte, and they're underway in Phoenix. The first meeting for the Metroplex in Las Vegas is coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And what they're doing is they're using these technologies to deconflict traffic from multiple airports. So, for instance, in an area like Southern California, where you have 5 or 6 commercial service and business aviation airports together, they're looking at all of the approach procedures into those areas to make sure that the traffic is separated, to make sure that the traffic is not stuck with these step-down procedures and dog-leg procedures and so forth. So they're modernizing it, streamlining it, so that there is less environmental impact, less use of fuel, less noise, and so forth in those areas. We've already had a release of the environmental portion of that study in Southern California. So the airports that are located down there and the consultants that are located down there, I encourage you to respond to the FAA's study and support the Metroplex, because it's really going to be better in the long run. But the modernization of the system in NextGen requires our members to equip on board their aircraft in order to take advantage of it for a more precise navigation. It's an enormous investment, Our members need to make the decision, are they going to acquire a new, already equipped aircraft? Are they going to equip their current aircraft? And what will be the return on investment there in terms of being able to resell that airplane? Or is it better for them just to get rid of the airplane now and buy new ones? So there are a lot of tough choices out there, whether to upgrade or buy newer aircraft. One of the things that's happening at the airport level, of course, is GIS. And what's happening with GIS is that we're revealing a lot more penetrations into the airspace than we knew existed before. And so some of our airports, because they've been slow to respond to the FAA communications about these penetrations, we're seeing airports that are losing instrument approaches or the use of their nighttime approaches and so forth. So we really encourage you to step up as airport operators, get involved with your planning and zoning, monitor the FAA's tall structure websites and so forth. One of the things that technology has done there is you're no longer getting the mail that says that something new and tall is being built in your area. So you actually have to proactively go into the FAA website and check on that regularly. We ask you to do that in order to assure access to your airport. Mitigation is no substitute for land use planning, as you know. So you need to establish good relationships with your planning and zoning. But even their advice is sometimes ignored, as you know. So you need to reach out to your city council members and your county supervisors and your tenants. Take advantage of the tenants on your airport to get involved there to make sure that your airspace is protected at your airport. And data sharing between airports becomes really important. And I think that you'll find that it's really important, especially coming up under Super Bowl. One of the things that happened in Phoenix well, we had the Super Bowl, or what we called the super season, because we had so many large events going on at one time there in Phoenix, was this terrific coordination that went on between the general aviation airports and Sky Harbor airports and so forth. And it became especially critical on Sunday morning when the weather moved in and people were unable to land at some of the airports that they planned to land at. And because the Arizona Airports Association had put together a committee and had good communication and data sharing, there were ways for the airports knew how many other airports could accommodate. And for instance, my home airport at Falcon Field was able to accommodate 20 additional aircraft on Super Bowl morning that would not have been able to get in because of the data sharing that went on between the airports. It is about accessibility, as Rich talked about. We want to access our customers, our potential customers. We want to access our manufacturing plants or our farms and so forth. So the aircraft and the airspace and the runways and the airport services are simply a means to access those resources. So noise abatements and curfews are certainly a problem. They impede the efficiency of your airport, and they actually sometimes create some of the impacts that you're trying to avoid, such as longer time in the air and so forth, longer warm-up times on the ground where you're generating these emissions that your airport neighbors are complaining about. So curfews, even soft curfews, are definitely a problem, especially for our international operators. Recent studies are showing that the 65 DNL contours are shrinking to within the boundaries of the airport. But unfortunately, because of the lack of land use planning in some areas, what we have is these sensitized neighbors, and they're just not going to believe the science. So you need to get out there and be proactive, as I said, as much as you can. Utilize your tenants who are interested in using that airport and let them be proactive. As Rich mentioned, many of our operators are using rural airports, secondary airports, general aviation airports. So it's really important, this funding problem that's going on for our airports, the tax money not getting back to our airports for airport improvements is very important to NBAA, and we are advocating very actively for that funding to take place, that California will be involved in those issues. LAWA's collaborative work as you heard last summer with the tenants at the Van Nuys Airport, was very important in reducing the amount of time that that runway was shut down from 120 days anticipated by the contractor in the beginning down to 10 days. So that collaborative effort during construction helps to maintain access to the airports, and we appreciate that. The security programs that you put in place, we've had one of our members recently, for instance, talk about a TSA coming into his facility at one of your California airports and saying that he wanted to put in card locks, key locks for every single door coming out of every single hangar and every single building door onto the ramp from his building and he had 26 doors going out to access the ramp at $1,200 a piece they wanted in order to equip those doors. So by talking to the talking to your FBO, talking to the TSA and pushing back a little bit, I think what they're going to do is they're going to secure a couple of doors on the public side instead, 2 doors instead of 26 doors. And that's a tremendous savings, and it makes a lot more sense. So remember that the GA side doesn't need to be as secure as the SIDA, and that the penetrations that have happened on the aircraft perimeter, on the airport perimeter, are often not at the FBOs, but we do want a proactive approach with our FBOs to monitor their gates and things like that and utilize the technology at an affordable and reasonable rate. And your community outreach, of course, is really important. And again, I'm going to put out the sample of Scottsdale Airport and the way that they've been able to utilize YouTube and other social media in order to talk about their airport and the availability of their airport. And if you haven't visited the Scottsdale Airport website, I recommend that you get there and look at the website, look at the videos that are on there. There's one video that is especially interesting that it actually talks about Super Bowl and how smoothly it went with absolutely no delays. Congratulations, Gary, on that. And even though at dinner last night you gave me a hard time, I still mentioned your airport today. International operations, as Rich mentioned, are critical for many of our members. And as he said, the security problems, even domestically, are a challenge. But one of the things that you may or may not be aware of is IBAC, the International Business Aviation Council, and how that council works closely with business aviation users and ICAO to establish best practices and procedures for international operators and to preserve global general aviation access to airports. One of the ways that they do that is by developing an international standard, is BAO, that our members strive to qualify for. And one of the things that's considered in there is not only what's happening internally in the safety programs and the risk management programs and so forth that are going on at the companies who want to be as BAO certified, but also the conditions at the airport. You play a pretty important role in that. So I recommend that you work closely with your tenants at your airport to see what you can do to help support their ISBAO qualification. Customs and Border Patrol facilities, they are so important to our members, and as Rich mentioned, coming in and out of the country, you need to have that access 24 hours a day, and wherever possible, if you're Part 121, Part 139 airport, if you can separate your business aviation customs a little bit from your airline customs, that's going to be a safer, smoother transition. And I would encourage those airports that are able to do it, and especially if you're a system type airport such as LAWA and San Jose and so forth, if you can encourage and help support customs and Border Patrol facilities at your GA airports, I think you're going to find that it really helps your GA airport to grow, and it's also a very positive impact environmentally, because when you think about it, it doesn't make sense for an aircraft to have to fly into Los Angeles airport in order to go to customs, and then the persons on that airplane don't want to hang around and wait for the airport to be repositioned to the Van Nuys Airport or some other airport. So they get in a car and they're out there on the highway, and then that airplane has to get up in the air and make this very, very short repositioning flight to get to the airport that it needs to really be based at. Now you've introduced those additional operations on the aircraft, which are costly, wear and tear on the airplane, but you've also got an extra flight out there and extra noise that doesn't need to be introduced to the community. If you can get customs like at Van Nuys, which is actually in place right now, and they're having their big celebration of formal opening coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so I'm very excited about that. You want to make sure that you have proper facilities at your airports for disposal of waste for those return flights, and that is available all the time also at your airport. Foreign time zones and governments control, and foreign air traffic control systems are what controls what time those flights can take off from that foreign country and come back to the United States. So curfews, even soft curfews, definitely impact the members and the utility of your airport. So I would do all you can to overcome those types of challenges with your city councils and your airport sponsors and so forth. Curfews cannot always be observed because of this, and companies desiring to do business overseas will perhaps avoid your airport altogether if they need to, because they know you have these challenges in place. So we'll talk just for a moment about the onboard technologies also that are available. Implementing these and installing these technologies can be a challenge to our aircraft owners and operators. More and more there's an expectation that what you can do on the ground you're going to be able to do in the airplane, as you saw on that video, even though you're at 40,000 feet and near the speed of sound. Aircraft cabins serve as boardrooms and workplaces for their occupants, their time machines. They need to have the executives, administrators, technicians, and engineers and medical personnel on board those aircraft want to be able to communicate with their ground facilities. The companies that own the aircraft want to be in touch with that aircraft, know exactly where it is at all times. So NBAA is working with our members to develop some industry standards for broadband on board and connectivity on board the aircraft, and training for the flight crews, training for the cabin crews, training for the installers, the technicians that are putting it in, and working with the manufacturers carefully to come up with a standard there, because you don't want to punch a hole in an airplane or something and suddenly that airplane is just a one-off airplane and it affects the resale and so forth. Companies are actually able to subscribe to onboard medical services. If you have an in-flight emergency, medical emergency, you subscribe for a service where you can actually have a discussion with a physician. On board, you have an onboard medical kit. You talk to the physician, you see what the problem is, and then that subscription company can also tell you where to go, where to land next, to make sure that you get the medical services that you need when you land. So these are all high-tech solutions to in-flight problems. And the maintenance folks do that too. Now, I was told initially that I had a little extra time, and that went on. So I did create another slide, but in order to fill that, and I want to hit some of that stuff. We do have air traffic control services that our members can subscribe to, so that they get immediate emails and in-flight information about changes in the air traffic control. We have somebody who's actually sitting there in Herndon with the FAA and monitoring what's going on there, so our members are able to take advantage of that. We have airmail where they can talk to each other, talk about the good experience or the bad experience they may have had at airports or at places, at international locations and so forth. We have web-based instruction for our international operations and flight department management, safety and so forth. A weekly newsletter. We have our Business Aviation online, Business Aviation Insider magazine. It's available also online. And we do use social media such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google, and so forth. There's a lot more to talk about. We haven't even touched on UAS, software for flight department management, data collection for safety, and scenario-based training and so forth. But I want to invite you to attend our our national convention in Las Vegas, Nevada. The dates are November 17th through 19th. Come and talk to me. I did bring with me, and they're on the back table here, a copy of our most current Business Aviation Insider magazine. It features one of our member companies that uses business aviation, Sanderson Farms. They're talking about people who, they're veterinarians and so forth that travel on their airplanes, they're technicians, and so forth to get in and out to their farms. It's a very interesting article. I also brought with me a one-page handout that talks about the desirable resources that need to be at your airport for business aviation and what the minimum resources need to be at your airport for developing infrastructure at your airport. So please take a copy of each of those, and I'm around for the rest of the week. Thanks.
So in the interest of time and my hunger and your hunger, I'm sure, I want to thank. We're not going to have any questions. If you have any questions, Stacy's here for the rest of the week. Rich has agreed to hang out for a little bit with us. If you have any specific questions, you may ask him. SWAI is proud to continue its relationship with the Wounded Warrior Project and has made a donation to the Wounded Warrior Project in your name in appreciation of your participation in this panel today. So, Rich, Stacy, Jolee had a hard stop. I want to thank her as well, so thank you very much. One quick program note, we'll start back up at 1:45, so we'll continue our 15-minute delay. So 1:45 back here for our next sessions. Please enjoy your lunch.